Hello there, and thank you very much for joining us today for this Blue Venn session, to CDP or not to CDP. And today we're going to be looking at 5 ways to unify disconnected data. My name's Jen, I'm on the marketing team here at Blue Venn. I'll be keeping an eye out for any questions that you guys send over to us, so make sure you do send them in. If you look at the right hand side of your screen, there should be a drop down box and you can submit your questions there. So today we have Matt Diamond presenting for us. He's one of our consultants here at Blue Venn. So Matt, thanks very much for joining us today.
No, it's great to be here, Jen. Thank you for having me.
And the session should last about 30 minutes or so. We've got a lot to get through. So Matt, are you ready to kick off?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So, to be or not to be. Many people know Shakespeare's famous lines from Hamlet, but what has one of the world's most famous playwrights got to do with marketing? Well, if we translate his words into modern English and add some marketing context, Hamlet could have sounded a little bit more like this. So, to live or to die, that is the question. Whether it is nobler to suffer the terrible trials of siloed, inaccessible, disparate data, or to fight them off and find a solution to end them completely. So with the fight to resolve our data issues at the front of our minds, we're going to be spending today's session having a look at how to avoid the trials of siloed, inaccessible data by understanding the definition of a CDP, looking at the 5 approaches that marketers adopt to try to obtain a single customer view, including understanding their advantages and their disadvantages, and also exploring some of the things to consider when looking to obtain a single customer view and a robust customer data foundation. So in order to define a customer data platform, or CDP for short, I'm going to defer to David Rabb of the CDP Institute, who is responsible for what many people in the industry consider to be the industry standard definition of a CDP. So within Rabb's often cited definition, there are 3 key elements. The first being packaged software. And by providing packaged software, rather than coded scripts and clever load routines, the CDP is removing the historically heavy reliance marketing have had on IT teams, whether they're internal or external. And that's for both the construction and the maintenance of the CDP, the running of queries, and the provision of extracts for analysis or to power communication channels. The CDP is also empowering marketers to realize their often cited dream of truly owning and managing their own customer data. So by matching, merging, deduplicating data across all of a business's operational systems, a CDP is breaking down the historical silos of data present within many organizations. Subsequently, by making all of the data available with no summarization or aggregation taking place to maximize the storage capacity of a solution, for example, marketers are able to track customers throughout their journey with full historical persistence, thus removing questions around data reliability, integrity, and traceability. And by making data accessible to other data-driven systems, a CDP is not locking you as a business into an individual vendor or group of vendors' walled garden of offerings, so to speak. The CDP is enabling your business to choose from your choice of best-of-breed execution channels and operational systems, whilst allowing you to optimize the use of existing technology investments made in the business. And finally, the CDP is allowing your business to become truly customer-centric by placing usable, trustworthy, shareable customer data at the heart of the organization. Now, it's worth pointing out here that I've included the full definition on these slides, so if you are watching on demand, you can pause here and take a little bit of a read or revisit the presentation a little bit later on. So, what challenges are we trying to overcome with the use of a CDP then? Well, the answer to this question goes back to the dawn of database marketing. Marketers are trying to achieve a single view of each customer, an SCV or a single customer view, if you will, including all of their contact points and all of their historical interactions with the business, and then have the ability to trace each customer's overall journey in order to be able to market to each and every one of them more effectively. Now this has become even more important in the modern hyper-connected world, where customers' attention spans and willingness to accept anything less than bespoke experiences and outstanding service has dwindled to a point that makes the job of a marketer very difficult, especially if they're still stuck in the old and manual ways of working, where they rely heavily on other departments and teams. So with that in mind, marketers are not going to choose to suffer the terrible trials of Hamlet. They're going to find a solution to the problem. So to solve these problems, we're going to look at the 5 different approaches that marketers use to try to obtain a unified single customer view in a bit more detail, starting off with an internal project. Now, the general consensus among every business I've ever spoken to who've undertaken an in-house CDP or SCV project is a resounding, just don't do it. It's just not worth it. Now, the reasons for this reaction are multiple and varied depending upon the business, but essentially though it boils down to time, skills, project management and cost. All of these factors though are seemingly pushed aside with an internal project as a business becomes so focused on owning the customer data platform and the single customer view that they haven't fully evaluated the actual business impact of delivering the project using only their own internal resource. Now, any data project the scale of a CDP or an SCV requires highly skilled, experienced developers who've undertaken similar projects previously. Now, these developers can be costly, and if you're lucky enough to have one already within the business, I guarantee that they almost always have a day job, so to speak. So the inevitable strain between that day job and the CDP project needs ongoing management. I also see lack of ROI and scope creep as major issues as well in a lot of my conversations. So much like a child playing with Lego bricks, building a pyramid for the first time, many businesses lay out all of their bricks to create this massive long line, this long base, but realise as they start to build upwards towards the apex that they're running out of bricks and they have to shorten that base to enable to reach the height of their achievement. So in a business context, this means that the project isn't hitting its defined aims, and in many cases isn't hitting the basic ROI checkpoints required to deliver any form of value to the business. So if going down the route of an internal project isn't right for you, what about contracting this work out to a third party then? Well, for businesses who building their own CDP is not an option, they will naturally look for experience externally. And this is where working with a third-party provider, such as an MSP, a data bureau, or a database provider comes in. While access to experience is a key driver for this approach, in my experience and through my conversations, this can also be a very costly and complex way of building a customer data platform. But this is due to the time taken to manage the project, and the commercial model of many third-party providers can exacerbate any cost issues, even if they remove the issues inherent within an internal project around time management, resourcing and skills gaps. And finally, there is the question of ownership. There are very few, if any, third-party data providers who will sign over the IP or the intellectual property of the customer data platform. And in my experience, this can lead to issues around asset realization and is always worth a deeper conversation with vendors in this space. So if volume and breadth of data is a key driver, then many businesses often consider deploying a data warehouse or a data lake or an enterprise data store. And I typically see businesses going down this route when they're looking to consolidate and manage all of their business data, filing it away in an organized central repository. I also typically see IT teams leading these projects, as they're about the logical storage and filing of raw, semi-processed or fully processed operational information, not about data cleansing or data enhancement, deduplication, or the provision of unified customer profiles. And concurrently, the reliance on IT or other technical resources within the business isn't removed through putting in a data warehouse. And it also leads to longer lead times for queries and lack of access to customer data, as well as the lack of that unified customer profile that marketers are trying to get to. But saying that, for many businesses, a CDP and a data warehouse do actually work quite well alongside each other, with the data warehouse managing the business's broader data storage needs, while the CDP provides the central unified source of all customer data and customer information across the organization. Now we come on to ETL tools, or extract, transform and loading tools. And I've heard many businesses refer to using an ETL tool as a way of automating a previously manual process of moving data around an organization, rather than a solution for the provision of a unified customer profile or record. Now, while extracting data from disparate systems, transforming its format and structure prior to loading it into another system absolutely has its place within the creation of a CDP in a single customer view, it's not the only process that needs to be managed. If you're only working with an ETL tool, what happens when you're looking to match, merge and deduplicate records or append third-party data files, for example? Now, the main difference between a pure ETL tool and a CDP is that the ETL tool moves data very quickly from system to system to system to system all around the organization. But it does not create that persistent, unified, central database, and hence the consolidated, persistent view of each individual customer. And this makes it extremely hard, and in most cases impossible, for marketers to get at the single source of the truth contained within their customer data, as it's still residing in each of those individual siloed operational systems. And finally, as the name also suggests, ETL tools don't provide any form of analytics or insight into data, leaving marketers to stumble upon insight accidentally or employ a host of other tools to derive awareness of the patterns and trends that are inherent within that customer data. So we've looked at how a range of approaches can meet specific elements and capabilities provided by a CDP. But let's now look a little closer at a CDP and how these elements combine to provide that unified, centralized, marketer-controlled view of customer data. But before we do that though, I want to revisit a point I made a little bit earlier on. There's a lot of confusion currently around the definition of a CDP, and there are a number of vendors using the acronym who are not able to meet the industry-accepted definition of a CDP. And this can make it a lot harder for businesses evaluating CDPs and looking to obtain a single customer view. And in a lot of the conversations I've had, it can lead to businesses comparing and sometimes even buying solutions that don't actually meet the stated brief of providing that view of customer data. But despite this confusion, what a CDP does do is it empowers marketers. It empowers marketers to do more with data, as they no longer rely on IT teams or external resources such as an MSP to ensure their data is trustworthy, complete, usable and accessible. So some of our audience may question why you'd want to adopt a marketer-owned, self-serve empowerment approach if the expertise to build a customer data platform or single customer view doesn't already exist in-house. Well, I believe that marketers know their business's customer data better than anyone else. And many CDP vendors offer what could be considered a hybrid model of deployment, where marketers can do as much as they're able to do or much as they want to do in line with the timeframes they're working to and the skills that they have within their teams. And the vendor is able to provide as much or as little support as needed, meaning that for the modern DIY marketer, a CDP is a great way to meet their needs, but also have that full set of vendor support and expertise on hand as and when it's needed. But many CDPs, move beyond just providing a clean, trustworthy data layer to providing analytical capabilities that can aid marketers' iterative querying needs. And some even go so far as to coordinate the provision of the entire omni-channel customer journey as well. And for all CDPs, it's worth checking out what integrations are available, but also how customer feedback can inform the development of new integrations and new features, as connecting to operational systems and execution channels is a core part of a CDP. And it's this capability that helps you to leverage existing technology investments, whether that's BI tools, email platforms, SMS gateways, for example, but also enable you to connect to your choice of best-of-breed solutions in the marketplace that may potentially, with the solution you have historically, have been previously inaccessible. And it's this approach to integration that also enables a CDP to be fully future-proof. As it's just a question of either adding a new data source or adding a new execution channel. It's not a question of tearing down and rebuilding and re-architecting your entire technology stack as business needs evolve and the capabilities provided by MarTech space evolve as well. So, as we've already covered, the process of unifying customer data is fraught with pitfalls and many unforeseen dangers. However, the effect of a truly 360-degree view of customer data across the business is indisputable. But there are 5 things that are common to all of the conversations I have with businesses evaluating CDP and SCV projects. And they are data, people, culture, technology, and processes. So when we talk about each, a few of the key things to consider are, what data do you have? Where is it? Which departments and which people hold access to that data, and which systems is that data in? How do you access it? Is it a question of just saying, could I have a login for this system, or is it a lot more involved around sort of getting extracts from different teams, etc.? But also, not only that, what skills do you have yourself? What skills do you have as a team across the business? And what skills do you think are missing as well? Is the culture of the organisation actually aligned to the desire for a customer data platform or a single customer view? Is the business actually going to see the benefit of becoming truly customer-centric? When we look at technology, this is also a bit like with people. What technology is already in use? How is it being deployed? What gaps are there as well? And it's worth looking again across the whole business, because there are pieces of technology out there that are relevant for multiple departments. And finally, when we look at process, a couple of the things I like to think about are, well, what processes are going to be fixed? What are going to be changed by a particular approach that you've chosen? But also, probably a bigger question is there going to be an efficiency benefit? Is this going to make life better for the individual users? So some of you may have been watching today's webinar and thinking, well, hold on a minute, this is all well and good, but we already have a customer data platform or a single customer view. It's within our CRM, right? Well, pausing here, I want to refer you back to our earlier definition of a CDP and ask you to consider a few things in the relation to your customer data platform or your single customer view as is. Firstly, you still rely on IT teams or other technical resources such as a BI or an analyst team to access the data and ask questions of the data. Are you working within a browser-based software package, for example, or have you had to spend time learning a particular query language or another technical skill to enable you to get at and use the data? That feeds on to what level of control do you actually have over the data? Can you actually share your customer data across the business and all of the different systems within the business? Is that data then trustworthy and usable? But firstly, is it all available? It's not sort of siloed away, it's not aggregated, it's not summarized in any way. And is it persistent? Can you trace it for regulatory purposes right back to when it was originally captured? And are you free to use your choice of channels, of existing technology investments, so different BI tools, different SMS gateways, social media platforms, DMPs, email providers? And are you locked into using a particular vendor's tool set rather than being able to choose from all of those best-of-breed solutions across the industry that are most suited for your business and your use case? But most importantly of all, does your current solution meet your needs as a marketer? So with research firms such as Gartner citing statistics such as 52% of the surveyed marketing leaders reporting a full CDP deployment. But then following this up with 51% of the surveyed marketing leaders, that difference of 1%, saying that their CRM is their customer data platform. And taking these out of context, as I just have, these figures and statements can just add to all of the confusion around the definition.
So Matt, actually to help with that confusion, I don't know if you've already seen, but I have attached our Marketer's Guide to Customer Data Platforms ebook. I can see that we've had a few downloads already. If you do have confusion surrounding that, then we would recommend downloading that ebook and having a quick read. It's a great resource to clear up any confusion you may have.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks for doing that, Jen. So we move on now to looking at making a decision. Where to spend your budget and what to spend it on. Now, I am in no way going to answer that question for you, because in my view, this is fundamentally a business-specific question that only you as the marketer within your organisation can answer. But saying that, there is some insight I'd like to actually add here. With the focus of the customer as a whole on the level of service and the quality of experience that they receive, combined with many organisations needing to change and to actually execute those fundamental changes internally in order to meet the ever-evolving demands of the hyper-connected economy. Evaluating the balance between a short-term solution of being able to, let's say, move data and a longer-term project to lay stable and trustworthy data foundations, especially around customer data, is absolutely key. But also with data becoming such a hot topic and its use being so regularly scrutinised, both in the specialist marketing media but also in the more sort of general popular media as well, it's down to us as marketers to show what is possible when data is gathered and used for the benefit of the customer. But really though, this decision boils down to three key points. What's the available budget and what are the skills available within your business? And this is especially relevant if you're looking to build and manage your own data platform. What are the time constraints for solving the data unification problem? If it's something, again, you're looking to do internally, is there the time to actually do that? Especially if this is sitting as a project outside of the remit of other people's already busy day jobs. But finally, what's the implication of doing nothing? And this is often something that when I speak to businesses initially, they've kind of forgotten. I always like to frame it and say, well, how would a regulatory fine, say for European context, from GDPR, for example, actually affect the business in question? How would that regulatory fine then filter down and impact the customer and the customer experience of the brand as well? So I know we've covered a lot of ground today and that many of our audience are going to be approaching this webinar from a broad range of backgrounds, different levels of experience of customer data and MarTech solutions. But to recap, there are many tools that are available to manipulate, move and store customer data, and each have their own benefits and their own limitations. But it all boils down to what you're trying to achieve, and using what you're trying to achieve to actually inform what the most appropriate tool or approach is for the outcome or outcomes that you're seeking for your business. And if that outcome is around utilising a unified, trustworthy customer profile, and if you and your organisation are looking to become customer-centric and leverage a truly unified single customer view, then the best option to achieve this is absolutely with a customer data platform. While many systems provide some of the capabilities of a CDP, they're not able to meet all of the needs of marketers, especially when looking to employ a robust customer data foundation.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. So you ready to take some questions? We've had some through.
Yeah, let's have a little look at those. I can see you've got quite a few.
Awesome. Okay, I've picked out a couple of questions that you guys have sent over. If you haven't yet submitted a question to us but you want to, please feel free to submit it, and if we can get to it, we will. If not, we can always answer it offline. Okay, Matt. please can you explain a bit more about how a data warehouse and a CDP can work together and where the overlap is?
Well, firstly, whoever answered that, thank you. That's a really good question. So as I mentioned during the presentation, a data warehouse is great for filing. It's great for organising and storing all of the data from all over the business. Essentially, I like to think of it as a sort of a business's data library. But this can lead to confusion, like the question says, between the overlap between a CDP and a data warehouse. But while the data warehouse can actually store and it'll organise all of the business's data, what it's not then able to do is provide that cleansed and deduplicated unified customer profile that marketers are looking for. And that's really where the CDP comes in. And I'd also say as well that the CDP is also able to provide that profile, but in many cases it can actually draw information from the data warehouse to enable the creation of that single customer view and that unified profile as well.
Awesome, thanks for that. And you mentioned that vendors are not always meeting the definition of a CDP. So can you go into a bit more detail of that? So what are you actually referring to?
Okay. I think the easiest way to sum this up is that we spend a lot of time talking to analysts at Gartner, Forrester, and also to a lot of other businesses via the CDP institutes. And what we know is that there are a lot of CDP solutions out there that actually, they don't provide the essential cleansing and enhancement of the data or the ability to edit individual records, which is, in my mind, is really paramount for marketers to use the data in other sort of execution and orchestration tools. I mean, it's fair to say that none of the CDP definitions actually state this, but without it, the marketing database will not provide the benefits that marketers need to ensure that they've got the best quality data to enable that sort of personalization and targeted marketing that they're looking to use.
Awesome, thanks for sending that question through. And Matt, how does the CDP enhance insight for our client's customer database?
Okay, I'm going to have to be quite general about this because obviously there's quite a lot of business context to that as well, which I don't necessarily have. Yeah. But I think broadly speaking, a CDP can enhance your insight in a number of ways depending upon the specific solution that you select. So if we start off with the data side of things, the provision of that unified trustworthy foundation in the form of that single customer view is going to enable you to actually understand each touch point between your organisation and the customer, how they're interacting with you on different channels, and identifying all of those behaviours and actions and trends that you can then use to inform your own actions.
Awesome, thanks Matt. And then this question, we have to answer it because it always comes through to us. What's the difference between a single customer view and a customer data platform, Matt?
Okay, again, really good question. But I think just to keep this in the broadest possible terms, the CDP is used to describe the processes undertaken within and managed by a software platform that creates the single unified customer record from all of the ingested data. So when you think about it, the CDP is the software and the processes within that software, and the SCV, or the single customer view, is the output of all of those processes. It is the actual unified customer profile as well.
Awesome, thanks Matt. Okay, so I'm conscious that we've got only 1 more minute left of the session, and I can see that we haven't answered a couple of questions, so just to let you know, we will answer those offline shortly after the webinar has ended. But I want to take a moment just to say a big thank you for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more about custom data platforms, then please feel free to head to our website, which is www.blueven.com. We've got tons of great resources, and we've also got our bi-weekly demonstration of our own custom data platform, which happens, like I said, every 2 weeks, and you can sign up for that quite clearly on the homepage of our website, so please feel free to head there. Also, I just want to say that we are attending a couple of events in the next 2 weeks. So the first one for our US audience, we're going to be at eTel West, which is happening in Palm Springs on the 19th of Feb, so next Tuesday. So we're going to be at stand 518. Make sure you pop over and say hello if you're there. And for our UK audience, we're going to be attending Marketing Show North, which is on the 27th of Feb at stand 43. Perfect. Well, thank you very much again for joining, and thanks Matt for presenting, and we hope to be speaking with you soon. Goodbye.